Okay, I'd like to continue the game between Havasi and Capablanca, played in 1929. I just covered Black's 18th move of knight to d5, where the knight's headed to the queen's side. Now White plays rook to a2. The idea is that eventually the bishop's going to move, and then White can play rook to c2. Now Black plays rook to c6, obviously with the idea this is just a preparatory move for doubling the rook. White plays e4, probably a little too late. The knight was headed to the queen's side anyway, so it's just forcing the move. So the knight comes to c3, forcing an exchange of bishop for knight, which actually will help Black, because if Black can get rid of some of these pieces, then it looks like the passed pawn will become more powerful. So bishop takes, rook takes, and then White plays knight f3. The knight was sort of getting in the way of some of the pieces, and it's just sort of getting out of the way, and it's just sort of White's trying to regroup a little bit. Too bad the knight couldn't move somewhere else. Seems to be a little bit away from the action, but maybe it can leap into action. Black plays rook on f to c8, doubling the rooks. White plays h3, giving the king an escape square. And now Black plays knight to c4, uncovering an attack and triple attack on the pawn. The only move to save the pawn is a4. And then Black plays this nice sweet little move a3, which sort of blocks the defense of the pawn. White plays queen to b2, looks like threatening to win the knight, but then queen takes a4, winning the pawn. Now if you look at it, White actually is only a pawn up, but it has two connected passed pawns on the queen side. That looks very dangerous. And now White's going to play rook to e2, and it looks very strange. Obviously trying to stop some type of rook to e2 move. An alternative, which I first saw, which doesn't work for White, is I thought rook on e to a1 looked good, because it looks like it's going to win the knight, but it doesn't because of this move queen to b5, forcing the queen to move. And I would say the best move is then queen to d2, and then follows that is knight to b1, attacking the queen. Then the queen can go to f4 or g5. I'll just say g5 because of, maybe I shouldn't, with the exchange of queens, the passed pawns are just going to get stronger, but it's hard to find a good move for White when the queens are exchanged. Then the rook can come to c1, check, protecting the knight, and then Black can just play a5, and I think Black wins easily. So that doesn't work. So White tries rook to e2. Now Black's going to push the pawn. White's going to play d5, sort of trying to open up some lines for its rook so it can attack. And then Black's going to take the pawn. White retakes, giving a the exchange has given White an open file, but has created an isolated pawn for White. So take some good, take some bad. b4, pushing the pawn. If you don't know, White was actually threatening to take, and if Black recaptured, then White would just have checkmated. So that was the threat. So b4 not only pushes the pawn, but protects the rook here. Queen to d2, getting behind its own passed pawn. Hopefully white may have the idea of ramming it home. b3, rook to b2, sort of blockading the pawn. And then rook to c2, wants to get rid of a blockader. White's going to try queen e3 with an attempted, it doesn't really have, but maybe some tricks up its sleeve, back row mates. You always have to watch out for those any time that you don't have an escape square. They can get a little tricky. And then black just takes out the blockader. Actually, white has no trick, so it's forced to take the rook. Knight to c4, attacking both rook and queen. Then white plays queen to c1. Obviously, whoops, going the wrong way. I'm sorry about that. Queen goes to c1. Obviously, if black takes the rook, checkmate. Or actually, almost checkmate, but white takes rook. And then queen has to come back, and then it's going to end up being very bad for black. So it's a pen of the knight. Black plays queen a3, a counter pen. Obviously now white cannot take the pawn or lose its queen. Rook to b1, trying to get out of the pen, but it's too late. Queen takes c1. After, rook takes, pawn gets pushed, rook comes back, and then black will just play knight to a3, and white has, it's going to probably the best thing that white can do is then take the pawn, and it's over. So actually, white resigned in this position. So that was the game between Havasi and Capablanca.